1:30. We'll call it. Thank you all for coming in. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm here. For those who don't know, my name is NintenDrew. I've run a YouTube channel since, well, I started it in around 2007, but then really kind of rebranded and started making it an extension of my retro gaming hobby in about 2017. So, and I've just never looked back since. It's been a crazy ride. I come from a background of game development, so I kind of took that full circle during the pandemic and met up with one of the guys that I met at my first game dev job, and we kind of cranked out my love letter to the games that I grew up with, which is called Carl. It's on Steam and all major consoles. And it's kind of like a 2D platformer with RPG elements. We like to call it a platformer with heart. So it's like kind of Cave Story or Paper Mario-esque, you can kind of imagine. But I always feel weird about trying to compare myself to the games that inspired me, though, because to me they're on completely different levels. But yeah, like I said, I wasn't really sure exactly what to do with this panel slot, but I think what we'll do is just kind of, we'll open it up for a general Q&A, and then toward the end, I'm gonna have a few of our, a little sampler of what we usually do with, I'm trying to ramp up a Nintendo Jeopardy panel at conventions I'm going around to, so we're still working on the tech side, trying to get like a really good way to present it, but I've got some sample questions, and I think we'll open it up to the audience. We'll do some really obscure stuff, and whoever can call out the answers, we'll get you a digital copy of Carl on Steam. So, so thank you all very much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Lots of happy faces. How are you all enjoying Game On? Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, it's the first time I've been in Arizona, and it's I told my Uber driver when I was getting to the hotel, said I did not expect to see cacti and rain in the same day. Like, that was interesting, but yeah, I'm not complaining though. I left Kentucky, it was 80 degrees there, and got here and it was like 60, so not too bad for me. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about YouTube or game development or otherwise, just random stuff. So we'll go ahead and open it up to the floor for Q&A. Yeah.
What is your favorite band or musician, just generally?
That's a great question. I think my go-to is usually Daft Punk. Daft Punk has been my biggest obsession since like high school. Yeah, I think a lot of that can be seen in as a through line in the soundtrack to Carl. I tried to make what I described it internally as a industrial chiptune funk soundtrack. So that was the direction I was trying to go, or the feeling I was trying to capture, with lots of like those electronic leads, but with kind of more industrial sounds for the percussion, or kind of sounds like you're in a factory, like the echoing, booming, clang clashes, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, Daft Punk is probably. I also love Justice is another. He's funny enough, an electronic French duo. So that series of adjectives is always drawing me in. So yeah, thanks so much.
Where did you get the suit?
So this is from a company called Oppo Suits, like opposites but suits, and they have all sorts of different fun patterns and stuff. I know they've got a Pac-Man suit, and my buddy Yoshi, he's a visual effects artist on Star Wars. He's got a Darth Vader one that's got Vader all over it. I think I've also got like a comic book style, like bang pow, you know, like all the little onomatopoeia things suit. Yeah. Over here.
What's your favorite Nintendo game in general?
Yeah, favorite Nintendo game in general. I've always swapped between a couple. It's definitely within Mario, the franchise. Like, I think there's no way to escape that. But I've gone back and forth through the years between Super Mario Galaxy and Super Paper Mario, but both Wii games. Super Paper Mario is one that I have a particular affinity for, just because I think it was kind of put up as sort of the black sheep of the Paper Mario family when it came out, and like folks were really upset about it pulling away from the traditional turn-based mechanics. But there's something about it that just really grabbed me, and I think the story in particular is really a special piece of media.
The story is fantastic.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
What console is currently your most complete physical collection?
I do have a complete North American library for both Nintendo 64 and Virtual Boy.
Nice.
And I am trying to put together the complete in box Nintendo 64 set, because I just got the loose cartridges, but I've got probably about, I would guess, not more than half, but probably around half of the 64 library in boxes now too. But yeah, yeah, back here.
So as a game dev, I feel like a lot of games have chased realism for a really long time.
Sure.
And you have this kind of push, in my view, back to 2D.
The rebellion.
What are your thoughts on that, like, kind of shift in the whole
Sure. I think, well, it really is an exciting time to be a fan of games just because, I mean, we got like, you look at the Switch, it's, I mean, being completely candid, it was an aging tablet when it first came out in 2017. And now it's 7 years on, but it's capable enough that most devs that want to have a cross-platform title can make it work on Switch. Like you got Doom and Doom Eternal that look and play great on Switch. Even Alien Isolation is one that technically looks and plays better on Switch than on PlayStation or Xbox. I just the extra time for optimization and stuff. I don't know. So I think as we approach that kind of the limit or the asymptote where realism is no longer held back by hardware, like when you can have a handheld that can have a realistic, immersive game, I think it has opened up the industry to explore kind of the history of gaming and be able to kind of pick out what works and what doesn't and find new ways to tell new stories. And so I think it's, in addition to being more approachable for like established AAA devs to make realistic games, there's never been a better time to be an indie game developer. Like you have as many tools as have ever been available to start for free and start making your vision. So I think the only downside I can imagine from that is that there definitely is like kind of an oversaturation in places like Steam and the eShop, like there's a lot of drivel on the eShop. But on the other hand, I think it's really great that, if you, even as an individual, if you're just like one person who has an idea and you want to make a game, you can do it if you commit the time to it. So, yeah. Cool. Right here.
What game engine are you currently using? And if you answer that question, briefly, why have you changed?
So currently, Carl is built in Unity, and I'm on the side. I'm working on a prototype for a different title in Unreal. But Carl itself went through 3 different engines during the time that I was working on it because the very first prototype that I made for the game was back in 2012. And it was in GameMaker was the very first version that I made, and then I pulled it over to like Box 2D in Java, and then that was before I think it was before I had gotten my first game dev job. So then when I got there, we were using XNA and C#, but then eventually I convinced the team to swap over to Unity so that I could learn it. That was my motivation to be paid to learn the platform. But then once I got comfortable with Unity, I was like, this just makes sense. So now we'll move it over again and start in Unity. But it was. I think it was a good learning experience to be able to try to make the same thing work in a few different engines. So. Yeah, for sure. Right here.
Hey, so first off, I don't know if you heard, but Justice is putting out a new album next month.
Yeah. No, I'm excited.
Yeah, I heard a few of the songs. They're really freaking good.
Yeah.
But on the topic of indie games and everything, considering what's going on with AAA right now with all the massive layoffs and everything, and releases like Skull and Bones, Suicide Squad, and stuff like that, how do you think this is going to impact the indie scene moving forward?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people for a while there had gotten burnt out on the indie scene, like I mentioned with the oversaturation. Like I think there was a lot, like there were obviously you had your indie darlings like Undertale or Pizza Towers more recent that were really popular. But I think there is a kind of, I don't know, the feeling I get is that there is a sort of readoption of just the love for the indie scene. And I think that's really cool to see that like when people are excited for and hyped up for a AAA release, but it doesn't pan out to be exactly what they hoped for, there's still plenty of passionate teams that are motivated by things other than investors or higher ups that have their own sort of motivations. So I think the thing for me is that like there may be an oversaturation in plenty of these markets, but that doesn't take away to me from the good games that are out there, and those really shine through, and those are the ones you hear about that especially by word of mouth. I feel like word of mouth marketing for gaming has been on the rise as an important avenue for indie devs.
Normalize smaller budget titles.
Yeah. What you got, bud?
If you could only keep one console that you own, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. I think currently I would, my my answer might change once eventually the Switch Online is turned off, but I think I would say Nintendo Switch just because it has the access to so many of the older games throughout the Nintendo Switch Online membership. Before that, I might have said the Wii with the Virtual Console, you know? But as far as like if I could only play one system's library, I think I'd always go with the 64. The 64 has a really special place in my heart. And I've always said, like, I was asked what my favorite Nintendo title was, and I mentioned Super Paper Mario, but you can also interpret that question as, like, I've had people ask more along the lines of, like, if you were to be trapped on a deserted island, what would your one title be that you would bring? And that's different for me, because Super Paper Mario is fantastic, and I love the heck out of that game, but it's not, like, once you play it 2 or 3 times, you got it. Like, you kind of, like it's, there's a finite amount of gameplay, right? And that's, I mean, I guess that's true for any title, but the Desert Island game for me would definitely be Star Fox 64, just because I feel like I could play that game ad nauseum constantly for the rest of my life and never get tired of it.
Yeah, I'm so here.
Nice, thanks so much. All right. Okay.
What's your thoughts on the death of physical media?
I think, well, I mean, obviously I'm in the space, I'm a collector. I've got a lot of collector friends, and a lot of people are fearful of the future for physical media. I'm personally pretty optimistic. I think seeing the resurgence of vinyl music collecting, especially, and just even like if you're gonna watch a movie today, 9 times out of 10 you're turning to HBO Max, Netflix, some sort of online streaming service. But DVDs and Blu-rays, or well, Blu-rays, are still around. Like you're still like for those titles and those collectors that want to have a physical copy, as long as the demand is there, I don't see a reason why it would be completely phased out. Because like on the other hand, like I was an early proponent of OnLive and Stadia when it was out. Not because I was ignorant of the fact that it was kind of in that camp of like putting pressure on or threatening the existence of physical media, but because those services can provide the technical baseline for new experiences that couldn't exist otherwise. Like, for instance, something that I'm really, I think it's just a big shame is that when Google Stadia was first announced, they were talking about the possibility for battle royale games that could have up to 10,000 players in a single match. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, if you can make new experiences that are not possible otherwise, that's what I want to see. Like, that's cool. If you can make new games that couldn't have been made before. Because at the end of the day, I'm a fan of games. That's where I'm at. It doesn't really matter to me exactly how I'm playing them, but everything's temporary, you know? So like, and even with physical game collecting, I'm expecting one of these days that I'm gonna start popping in my NES games and yep, that one's got bit rot, that one's got bit rot, you know, or like find some bubbles in my discs, you know? But for me, it's always been more about the, like having the physical media that you can look at the artwork that you can have, because like we can back up everything, right? And I think that preservation is, we're gonna have a panel. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to make it because my flight is a little early tomorrow, but I'm supposed to be on a panel about game preservation tomorrow. But I think as long as we're pushing back against moves that kind of dampen the productivity of the preservation space, and as long as we continue to champion the benefits of ethical emulation and preservation, I think that as long as there's a demand for physical media, I don't see a time where it completely fizzles out. So I'm hopeful for that. So. Yeah.
Are you working with the preservation group right now?
Not directly, but I mean, I guess sort of tangentially related. We are trying to put out a physical copy of Carl for during the summer series, premium edition games. Working with them on that.
Oh, nice.
With the Fallout TV show and the Borderlands movie coming out, how do you feel about, oh, that's not the right word. What would you like to see adapted into a different type of media? And if so, what has come out already that you've enjoyed?
Okay, that's a great question. I think, well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is the Mario movie. I think I was really, I was pleased with it. I feel like, especially as a fan of the original '93 film, I felt like there were a lot of nods where the story kind of, like if you kind of read between the lines, the story almost follows the same sort of beats, even to the end where Bowser comes back into the real world and tries to, take over and stuff like that. So, like, I think that was successful in my book. I did hear about like some of the music that had been swapped out, which is a little bit of a bummer, but I do think also that it was an interesting angle for them to, with the soundtrack, to try to evoke the feelings of the mid '80s and like kind of contextualize the IP that way. Outside of that, I haven't really thought about what other IPs I'd like to see adapted, but I'm thinking like maybe Mirror's Edge. I feel like could be a really fun one. I was just think about. I mean, I guess there are a lot of cinematic games that could lend themselves easily to it. Like I'm thinking, Quantum Break was pretty much already half of the game was a movie, so like, that could work as a limited series or a TV show or movie. But yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah.
Similar question. I was really excited when I saw the direct for the Epic Mickey coming to
Sure.
Switch.
Yeah.
Is there any games that you want like that, like be able to have like a HD, more modern experience from the old library?
Yeah. Well, honestly, the Switch's library is completely stacked at this point. Like, it's a good time to be a Nintendo fan. The two things that I have been, well, three really. There are three games that have sort of been stuck in my mind or stuck in my craw that I'm really hoping that eventually we'd see a port. At this point, I'm not too hopeful, but I would love to see a more modern GTA title. I'd like to see GTA 4 or 5 on Switch. I think it's possible. It was on 360. Like they could get the thing is that Rockstar is like their cash cow is GTA Online, so they probably couldn't get GTA Online working on Switch, and so that's probably why they wouldn't do it. But I mean, LA Noire was, if not a launch title, it was pretty close to a launch title. So. But GTA 5, they did eventually bring the Portal Collection. I was super excited about the Portal Collection, but I would love to see just the entire orange box. I'd like to see Half-Life 2, the episodes, and TF2 on Switch. And then one of the Just Cause games. I'd love to see either 2, 3, or 4 show up on Switch. I'm a huge fan of the Just Cause series, and I feel like those sandbox games always are something I have a particular affinity for. So, again, not too hopeful at this point in the Switch's lifespan, but if pie in the sky wish list ideas, those are my three. Yeah.
By the way, I love your channel, but I have a question for you.
Sure.
What do you think about the YouTubers when they make a video about a video game and then the video game goes up in price?
Well, that's an interesting question because I was talking with John Riggs over dinner the other day about this, and I think the thing is, unless there is a specific anomaly in the space where there is a game that is completely unknown that overnight goes viral and everybody is aware of, most of us don't. At least under like 1 million subscribers, most of us don't have that much of an effect. Even so, honestly, you can imagine that some folks might consider the risk of, if more people are made aware of a title's rarity or value, that they might be likely to continue down that track. But on the other hand, you might also have new people say like, oh, I think that was in my mom's attic, and I'm gonna go find this copy. And now you've got more supply, you've got more influx to places like eBay or whatnot, or price charting. So as far as I can tell, I haven't seen anything that I have covered significantly increase in value, except for I think maybe the Game Boy Advance video collection. Once I put out that video, it seemed like I was one of the first people who cared about them. So it seemed like those. I don't know that they've necessarily doubled at this point, but I feel like it's a little faster than market trends. But I'm hopeful that hopefully I didn't do too much damage there. But yeah, more often than not, it's like I find that the retro game market seems to be pretty unpredictable to me. So you can follow trends and you can try to anticipate, but who knows what people will obsess over in 10 years. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the whole WADA thing, with like the scandal and the pricing?
I have never had really any interest in graded games. I think if you've got a sealed copy, good for you. You can keep that. You can. I mean, I've had sealed games that are worth something that I've opened to play. I think that's it. But I'm not going to judge somebody for keeping it if that's what they want to keep it as. But it doesn't quite make sense to me when local game stores are taking like a sealed inbound copy and sending it off to get graded and then selling it for 3 times. I'm certainly not going to be. That's not my market. So. Yeah, usually I'm not trying to pick out sealed games because if I get something, I want to be able to play it. Like honestly, I was thinking about my backlog the other day. I'm thinking about how many, what percentage of the games in my game room that I've actually played. I could stop now and play a new game for like every week for the rest of my life, and I would not get bored or run out of content. But it's not for my motivations for collecting. It's not necessarily for me to be able to have those experiences, but rather to be able to have a sample of each of these consoles libraries that is wide enough that I can bring in a friend and say, like, have them look at my shelf and like, oh, you've got, Super C on NES. Like, I played the heck out of that, or like be able to pull something off that somebody else has experienced and be able to hear from them what their experiences are with those games and be able to share that with them. That's always been my motivation with trying to go for a wider collection than I will ever have the time to actually play myself. And preservation too. Like I'm always, I feel more confident if I'm able, like my complete 64 library, there's tons of games in there that don't have any business being played in 2024. But if for some reason, if somebody's looking for a specific title or ROM to be done, like I feel confident that I can get it done. So, yeah.
Do you 100% games at all, or just a one-time experience?
I feel like it's pretty rare for me to get so caught up in a game that I do feel the motivation to 100%, but there are some titles that really grip me and I stick with it and I do it multiple times. I think the first thing that comes to mind is the Far Cry series. Far Cry is one where just seeing that map go from red to blue in little chunks just lights up my brain. I'm like, yeah, let's get it. So definitely those kind of open world adventures can grab me that way. Some platformers and Mario titles like that, especially if there's like hidden coins in each level. Oh my God. Each of those, or like the Caribbean Forgotten Lands that just came out. Like that one was the one that I got kind of obsessed with.
Love that game. Forgotten Lands, great. What would you say is the most underrated title in your collection?
Ooh, that is a very good question.
If you have one, then maybe top 5 or something.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people didn't play Just Cause 3. I think that's one that kind of flew under the radar. That was really, to me, a lot of people play Just Cause 2, but then by 3, I think they kind of fell off. And 3 to me is Just Cause 2 with prettier graphics and a wingsuit. So it's a great time. And again, Super Paper Mario, that's one that's got a lot of controversy that I think a lot of people should give a second chance in the current day. So.
They should release that instead of Thousand Year Door.
I am excited for Thousand Year Door too.
Yeah.
What do you think about Charles Martinet not voicing Mario anymore?
That is an interesting situation. I don't have any real, I don't have any more information than anybody else. But it does strike me as odd, just because in all of the interviews he was always like, oh, I've done this for 30 years, I want to do it for 30 more, or like, I never want to retire, and then they suddenly announced that he's retiring after the Mario movie's announced. So I feel like there's a story there that we will never really know, or at least we won't know for another 40, 50 years or something. But I hope that wasn't something that was contentious or anything like that, because I could imagine there could be some sort of disagreement about the Mario movie or something like that, but I hope not. I'm hoping that it's just that the old guard at Nintendo decided it was time to secure their future, I guess, or something like that. But Kevin Afghani, the new voice, he's doing great. So
Yeah.
I think it's it makes sense. Like he couldn't do it forever. So, but I was just thinking about this the other day because the first gaming convention I ever went to was in March 7 years ago. I went to, I think it was a Lexington Toy and Comic Con, and I went up there because Charles Martinet was there. I got him to sign my copy of Mario 64, and two birds, one stone. I'll answer a question you didn't ask. It's not the most valuable thing, but my favorite item in my collection is my Mario 64 signed by Martinet. It's a great memory for me. So if there's any sort of natural disaster, that's what I'm going for first.
Well, I had my Super Mario 64 signed by him too.
Nice.
I mean, because that was my favorite
Uh-huh.
game as a kid. So
Yeah.
I'm happy and I love it too.
And he's a great guy, isn't he?
Yes. Oh yeah, super nice.
Yeah.
When you're creating your content, are you creating stuff that you want to see or that you perceive other people want to watch?
That's a great question. I think there is a strong incentive or draw to try to focus on the latter and try to follow trends or try to anticipate trends and try to match or meet people where they are and what they want to see. But I think that is a clear and quick recipe for burnout. I think anybody who is successful long-term on the platform is 100% committed to what they find interesting, and that passion is what shines through, and that passion ultimately is what brings in more viewers. So I've had times of both, but I'm definitely focused on trying to just find what sparks joy for me and share that with others. And ultimately, if it's something I find interesting, odds are, unless I'm a complete weirdo, there's going to be some other people out there that share those interests. So yeah, especially if you're interested in YouTube, I would highly recommend you always follow and chase that passion. So, yeah, back here.
Just wondering what your thoughts on the state of emulation today are.
Oh.
Where you would like to see it go?
Yeah, I think that emulation is crucial and paramount for the integrity and history of gaming. I think there's no argument to be made for the argument of emulation bad. It's just very simple and very short-sighted. I do think in local context, I'm imagining you're asking because of the Yuzu situation. I think it's a shame that Yuzu and Citra both shut down at the same time. I think that was a huge blow to both the enthusiast community and those that were on the development side. I don't think anybody saw the writing on the wall for Citra. They didn't think that was going down with it. On the other hand, the folks behind Yuzu, they messed up, and they know why they messed up. Like they were charging behind a paywall for patches that would help the newest Tears of the Kingdom, to help Tears of the Kingdom run before it had come out. Like, you got to know what's like, and so it's more than a slap on the wrist, of course. But I think I'm hopeful that it won't discourage other developers from coming through and continuing to push for those tools for preservation going forward. And honestly, it's such it is such a crucial space and such a universal hobby or passion that there are people all around the world that will always be interested in every generation of games. So heck, if it really turned out that folks didn't want to make emulators, I might have to try my hand at it. So I think I think video game preservation, the history of video games, and emulation will always go hand in hand.
On a similar note, do you think it should be, I think it's morally okay, but at least illegal to emulate dead games or games that are not sold anymore?
Absolutely not. No, if there's no way to get it, that's just a no. Unless there is a reasonable alternative, there's no reason to not support and be fine with that kind of emulation in my book. Yeah.
Have you done any game hunting during this expo?
Oh yeah. The first thing I found, I was excited to find a couple of Engage games. So Engage is probably the most obscure platform I'm looking for right now. I found a Call of Duty and Super Monkey Ball for Engage. I also grabbed a Japanese copy of Smash Brothers in the box for 64. That was cool. I'm on like 557 day streak on, or no, not quite, 546 day streak on Duolingo learning Japanese. So that's kind of opened up the world of imports to me. I'm shocked to find, after I learned katakana, that like 85% of anything written on import games is in English. It's just like written out with their alphabet. So I feel like that's opened my eyes to a new avenue of collecting, and that's so I'm always looking for cool imports too. Cool. Yeah. Here.
What got you into collecting oddities like the download station cards?
That's a great question too. I think specifically with the DS download station cartridges, I have an interesting origin story, I guess, with gaming in general, because I come from a fairly sheltered household where there was a rule in my family where I was not allowed to have any games that were not educational, not explicitly educational, until I was 13. So, and I'm 30 now, so when I turned 13, that was the year that the DS Lite came out. It was 2006. And so I got, for my 13th birthday, I got a DS Lite and New Super Mario Brothers. And I played it, and I was obsessed. And I was like, oh man, I have to go back and see every single thing that led up to this moment and figure out what informed this experience, because this is amazing. So that was the era where I was really like, it definitely backfired for my parents. I became obsessed. So I would ask my mom to bring me by McDonald's or Walmart or wherever they had the download stations for me to get the latest demos. And when I learned, I'm not sure exactly when it would have been that I found my first download station cartridges. But I just at some point I learned they existed and realized that was how the tech ran. And I look them up on eBay and it's like, oh, you can get some for like $20. Like, that's not too bad. Like I can try it at home. And after I picked up a few, it was it was some kind of addiction. Like there's only like 20, I can get all of them. But I've always had a fondness for just the kind of special knowledge, like the weird little corners of gaming history that you can talk to somebody and like say like, hey, did you know that there was a port of Grand Theft Auto on the Game Boy Color? Like that's weird, or there was Mario Brothers on the Atari 5200, or just kind of those odd corners have always been fascinating to me.
What do you think about the Yuzu Nintendo controversy?
Yeah, we were talking a bit about that with Yuzu and Citra. Like I think Yuzu fell into a trap of their own hubris. Like they knew what they were doing, and they took the hit for it. I'm hopeful. It did seem like as soon as it was taken down, like a lot of people forked that repository and were starting to build off of it because it was all open source, and they're able to continue the project. So I don't think it'll ever truly be dead, but I mean that is a huge blow for the emulation community for sure.
How do you get the call to join Minus World way back when?
That was actually Nathaniel Bandy. He was the one who really corralled us all together. He was in touch with SMG4, and he wanted to do the Super Mario 64 online, multiple YouTubers versus speedrunner kind of concept when that was the mod was first out. For this one, it was just basically a community mod where you could play Super Mario 64 with I think up to 24 players at the time, something like that. So we would have little speedrun challenges, like one speedrunner versus 10 YouTubers. And we just had a blast all together. So eventually we were like, well, we can keep doing this. We'll do other games. We'll do other stuff together. So.
Still going strong.
Yeah. We'll be at PAX this upcoming week.
Nice.
Yeah. You have one here?
Have you ever, I don't know how to pronounce it, the like Kaizu hacks for like Super Mario Brothers?
Oh yeah, Kaizo Mario?
Yeah.
Have you ever played them? Is it?
Yeah, have you ever like beat it?
I'm far too intimidated. I like to say I can talk about games, but I never claim to be good at them. Let's see. Any others?
Favorite indie platformer?
Ooh, my first thought, Shovel Knight. Yeah, I'll say Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight's great.
Is there any other YouTube content creators that you haven't worked with yet that you would want to work with?
Oh yeah, I've hung out a couple times with Scott DeWaz, and he's obviously a great guy, and we've done like a couple little short jokes or memes together. But I would love to come up with something that we could do a full collaboration on. Outside of that, like honestly, a lot of the YouTube that I watch is not in the gaming sphere anymore. Like I feel bad. I have a lot of friends in the space, and I always have to like kind of like binge or catch up with what they've worked on before I meet up to make sure I'm in the know. But yeah, I feel like definitely Scott's up there. Chatronic's one that we've always kind of had a good rapport back and forth. That'd be a fun crossover.
You're telling me you're not him?
I think maybe in April Fools we get to swap places, swap studios or something. Let's see, are we out of time? Okay. I said we'll do questions for about 10 more minutes, and then maybe we'll do some sample Jeopardy questions here if you want. Yeah.
What's your preferred emulation platform or like best of all worlds kind of setup?
Do you mean like for a specific console or like just
any console? So, if you want to play a variety of games, how would you?
Sure. I feel like I've always liked trying to make a setup that is cohesive with my general workstation, like with my desktop, like being able to have an all-in-one PC that can do VR and emulation and PC gaming. I also, I'm a fan of, every once in a while I'll pull out a Steam Link and set it up to be able to stream across the house and stuff like that. But I've recently had some fun with, I don't know if I had a review on the channel that went up with it's called a 1X Fly or 1X Player. So like a sort of Steam Deck competitor. I got that sent in for review, and I brought that to the hotel because I have had fun trying to load that up with all sorts of different adventures. And That's a good companion for flights and stuff like that. Honestly, one of the most exciting developments for me in that space is not directly related to gaming at all, but the new like slew of AR glasses that have come out, where like, you can have like a pair of sunglasses that look reasonably normal, and then there's like USB-C that runs to your phone or Steam Deck or Switch or whatever, and be able to have like a 120-inch screen projected in front of you. That's a godsend for flights and stuff like that. Like, it's amazing. So honestly, that's one of my most this is one of the pieces of tech that I've been most excited about over the past couple of years, is being able to have like a personal, private, massive display in front of your face. Especially, I'm really surprised that nobody has focused on the capability of having 3D content with those. Like most of the AR glasses that come out, like they have the capability of running 3D content, but they're not really leveraging it. But I've always been a fan of 3D. I've never been in the camp to say that 3D is a gimmick. I love 3D content, so I know that wasn't exactly your question, but like I'm in thinking of emulation setups, like being able to have what is practically a massive television screen in your pocket wherever you go is something that was a cool development for me. Did you have a question, or was it? I was just sitting at the corner of my house. Yeah.
So what was exactly the moment in your life that really encouraged you to get into retro game collecting in the first place?
That is a great question. I think it came from two different directions. The first was the launch of the first line of Amiibo in 2014. When they first came out for Smash 4, there were a few characters that I was thinking about getting at the time. Like I was in the camp where when they first announced it, I was like, oh, that's stupid. It's physical DLC. Why are they doing this? Like, I hated the idea. But then, like, I was like, okay, if I were to get some of them, like, I probably want to get maybe, Mario and Link and maybe a villager. And then, if you remember, if you were in that era, the villager was super hard to find. And so people were, like, sharing online, they're like, oh, you can order it from Amazon Germany or Amazon Italy, and they'll ship it out to you. Or, like, go on eBay and get it for $80 or something like that. So when that happened, and I'm sure it was by design, Nintendo knew exactly what they were doing, but that kind of intentional scarcity was definitely a source of FOMO for me. I was like, well, if I ever want to be able to have a complete set of Amiibo, I need to do it now. So I would go out and stand in line and go, I remember I met one of the guys that I've had a connection with on Discord and the collecting space for years. We met in line, I think at Target, for Rosalina. That was one that there were a bunch of people waiting outside before opening, and so that was a wild era that definitely got me in that mindset. But then the other side of that was from because I've been into retro game collecting, I would say, since I was about 13. Once I got that DS Lite, I was like, I gotta get everything. So I went back to my local flea market. I picked up, I think I picked up 64 first, and then NES, then, I got the Wii shortly after it came out. And I got a GameCube and Super Nintendo, and filled it all out, and then eventually found a Virtual Boy, and picking out all the different platforms. But I would say there was definitely a shift after I saw, I think it was the first video I saw from Metal Jesus Rocks, which was, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was visiting another collector in the area who had just finished his complete Wii collection. And it was just a wall of white. And I saw that and I was like, holy crap, that's possible? You can do that? And I was thinking I love the Nintendo 64. There's only 296 games there. There's 8,000 there, I could do 300. So that was the first where I set my mind to trying to get a complete library, and the rest is history.
Just Dance 2020 on the way.
Is there any other genres of games you would like to make? I know you brought up a platformer, but anything else, maybe an inspiration of Star Fox, a shooter like that?
Oh I've played with a few prototypes of Star Fox, on-rail shooters. I've got a prototype in the works that it's pretty far from being able to be shown off, but I've got kind of a pet project that really isn't, I can't describe it as fitting into any other genre, which I'm excited about because I feel like that's a sign to me that there's something unique there, but hopefully it'll be fun. We'll find out. You've probably heard the term walking simulator thrown around. This would be more in the category of running simulator. So I'm curious to see what that will pan out to be, but I'm kind of using it as a learning experience for Unreal. trying to shift over to that after some of the questionable policies for developers that Unity was pushing for towards the end of last year. But it's always been a goal of mine too to try to branch out and learn C++. So yeah, I definitely want whatever I put out next to be, because like with Carl, it wasn't that now when I was first making my first prototypes back in like 2012, it was about all that I knew how to do was a 2D platform. But 10 years later, with that much more experience with game development, like I didn't have to make a simple pixel art 2D platformer, but I also knew that I didn't want to try to make like my magnum opus as my first game, because that's always going to lead to feature creep, and it's never going to hit exactly what you want. So we got Carl to about like 85% of what I wanted it to be, and we're like, okay, it's got to go out the door. It's got to be done, So I'm looking forward to trying to branch out into something that still very much indie, but that might look a little bit more polished or high budget, I think. So yeah.
I haven't made the jump on Carl yet, but I do want to. What platform or like input, like keyboard or controller, what would you recommend as the guy who made it?
Honestly, I think the Switch is a great place to play it. I'm super pumped to be able to have a game on a Nintendo platform, and it plays great on Switch, so I think that's a great place to start. But honestly, I've heard it runs great on Steam Deck. I haven't tested it myself, but I think Steam Deck works fine as well.
Joy-Con or controller?
Honestly, either or. The controls are meant to mimic that of Cave Story, so it's kind of like directions and then 2 buttons. You got jump, fire.
Yeah.
So it's pretty simple. So whatever you're comfortable with, I think will work. Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a good segue. We might hop over to some of our Jeopardy questions, see if we can give away some codes. What I'll do is, for winners, I'll point you out and just come by afterwards, and I'll get you a Steam key for the game. But let's see. So I didn't have time to set up the whole Nintendo Jeopardy panel this year, but I do have my questions. I'm thinking, my thought was, let's go for the highest level, like the really obscure stuff, and see who can pick something out. Are you all down for some pretty obscure trivia? Yeah. All right. I'm just gonna keep an eye out and see if I can see who raises their hand first. But well, we'll see how this works. It might be chaotic. But I think we'll start at least with I've got 5 different categories, I think, and we'll do the hardest question in each. Why not? We'll see if we can give away 5 copies. All right, so we've got a category for Mario. It's a trick question, so let's see if anybody would know this one. So Toad is known by this name in Japan. Does anybody know Toad's name in Japan? Any guesses? Just throw something out there. Yeah.
Toad.
No, pretty close. No, his name is actually it's Pinocchio, which is interesting. And I'm always curious. Like you swap around the consonants, that's Pinocchio. I'm wondering if there's anything to that. I don't know. Let's see. This one. We'll do hardware history. This internal code name was used to refer to the Wii U during its development.
Revolution.
That's the Wii.
Caffeine?
Project Cafe. That's right. Come up afterwards and we'll keep up. All right. Let's do name the game. This entry in the Chibi Robo series was exclusively sold at Walmart stores when it launched in the U.S.
Park Patrol?
That's right. That's right. Good job. I'm assuming you only need 1 key. Okay. All right. Let's see. This Nintendo DS title, which stars a green-clad character from the Zelda universe, was never released outside of Japan and Europe.
Cadence of Hyrule? No.
Sorry, what?
Was it Cadence of Hyrule?
No, it's not. Yes.
I don't remember the full name, but I know it's with Tingle. Does that count?
Oh, it was
Tingle's Rosie.
Partial credit. Okay. I think you were third.
Tingle's Big Adventure?
No, that's not it. Yeah.
Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land?
That's right. Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land. Very good. Very good.
Okay.
All right. All right. Here's a random one that's kind of fun. In the original Game Boy model's product identifier, which is DMG01, what does DMG stand for?
Is it Dot Matrix 3?
Oh, that's so close. That's so close. Oh. dot matrix game. Very, very close. We'll get some more. We've only given away 2. We'll go until we get 5. All right, let's see. We'll go polar opposite. We'll do some easy ones, or easier. I don't know. According to the 1993 Super Mario Brothers film, this is Mario and Luigi's last name.
Mario.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. Good job. All right. This Nintendo system was released just a little over 1 year before the Nintendo 64 hit store shelves. That's right. Good job. All right, so I think is that 4? We got 4? All right. We'll get one more. Let's go for some difficult ones here. Okay, this one's fun. What common Japan to US regional difference can be observed in the box art of multiple titles from the Kirby series?
Kirby is angry in America, but happy in Japan.
That's absolutely right. Great job. All right. Very, very good. All right, so yeah, if the 5 of you would just come by afterwards, I'll make sure to get you set up with some codes. Other than that, I think...
15 minutes.
Yeah, we can wrap it up with some more conversation if you all have any more questions or any more comments or conversation. Yeah.
So you do game development, right?
Yeah.
How is Unity
I think Unity is definitely, in my opinion, it is the most approachable way to start if you don't have any experience in game development. But I think Unreal, from what I've seen, and my impression is that there is a lot that comes in the box that you can just start with. Like, you can have a multiplayer shooter running up in an hour if you want, which is really empowering for folks that are comfortable with that kind of space. And you don't honestly have to touch a bit of code to get started. Their blueprint system is really really what's the word? Like, it's robust. Yeah. I think there's pros and cons to each, but I definitely say Unity is better for like mobile development. Like it's easier to deploy to iPhone and Android pretty quick. But if you want to get the really cool toys, Unreal is the way to go, I'd say. Yeah. I have had that question before, and it would be a massive undertaking, but it would be really cool. I think if I could get like a Genesis or SNES port of Carl, that'd be really fun. I think I would have to rely on an outside developer because that's not where my expertise lies. But I'd be open to a partnership if I could find somebody that's willing to do so.
That guy's one of them. I think he's looking for a job.
Yeah, we should talk. Sounds good. Yeah.
That storefront or storefront? In terms of like being dead.
Well, certainly Steam is the easiest to get listed on, and I don't know that I'm allowed to talk about specifics, but there were some hurdles with Xbox. I will say that much. That was not an easy feat to get our game running on Xbox, or not necessarily get it running, but to get it listed. So even when all the work was done, there was quite a bit of email tag and issues that we had to sort out. Was it? Yeah. Well, the problem is that they've like every step of the process they've outsourced to some other company, and they've got like 4 different account systems for different parts of the process that you have to navigate, sign up for, and each one, of course, has 2-factor authentication, and you got to get access to specific areas, specific websites and portals. And, yeah, it's just a big undertaking for a 2-person team. But I'm pleased to have gotten through that gauntlet. But definitely, I'd say Steam and Switch are both pretty nice places for any devs.
While we're on the topic of this guy, while he's still in the mind, what would you say is your favorite and least favorite Kirby game?
Ooh. Well, I definitely have some nostalgia for Nightmare in Dreamland, because that was my first introduction to the series. And by extension, Kirby's Adventure on NES. I think that's my favorite NES title, bar none. And also, Forgotten Land was a lot of fun. Like, I was really impressed with their transition to 3D. I think that was really well done, really smart. I actually have adopted a few of the mechanics from Kirby and Forgotten Land for the new free content update that's coming out for Carl in the summer. I've got just a couple of nods to it, like a convenience store where you can get temporary power-ups, or like a fighting dojo where you can kind of go through rounds and bet scrap to get more game currency, you know. As far as least favorite Kirby game, I don't know that I've ever played a Kirby game that I didn't like.
Yeah, that's the at worst or mid.
I was even thinking like what would be like the smallest or least content. I was thinking of Dream Buffet, but that's a blast. I don't know that I have an answer for the worst.
Fair enough.
Oh yeah, back.
Are you looking to request or accept collaborations from other content creators?
Hey, I'm always open to networking and trying to learn what folks have got going on. I love doing podcasts, so I'll be around if you're wanting to stop by and talk later. Yeah.
Favorite obscure Nintendo series?
Ooh, obscure Nintendo series. Like Nintendo first party or just like okay. I feel like proportionally, and it's not obscure, but I would say Star Fox is definitely like my biggest affinity compared to most Nintendo fans. And even to the point that like Star Fox Zero, I love Star Fox Zero to death, and I know a lot of people hate that game. To me, it's like one of those things where it's almost like a Guitar Hero title, where like you might be terrible at first, but then like you play it for a couple hours and sleep on it, and then suddenly you're savant, you know? But because they were trying to do something unique with Zero, where like if for those who aren't familiar, like practically what it is you've got aiming with one reticle, steering with another, and then aiming the camera with the motion control. So it's kind of like having 3 joysticks in a single controller, which is very much like, you know, patting your head and rubbing your stomach, you know, that kind of discongruent control scheme. And it is a shame that I think if Miyamoto wasn't so willing to die on that hill, that I think that it could have been, it could have had some more widespread appeal. But if you're willing to put in the time to actually learn it, it is just a better version of Star Fox 64 all around. So it's again not very obscure, but specifically in the Star Fox series, I think Star Fox Zero is one that gets a lot of hate that I'm particularly fond of. Outside of that, like I don't know, there's I mean, Tingle's Rosy Replant is a fun story of like a weird little spinoff. I'm thinking like. I mean, even just some of the Virtual Boy titles, like the Waterland Virtual Boy and Mario Flash, those are interesting titles. Also some of the precursors to like Star Fox and Mario Kart 64 on the Super Nintendo, like Vortex and Stunt Race FX. Stunt Race FX, I think that's one that I would go with. I saw a couple copies down there in the show floor. If you haven't played that, I highly recommend it. It's a great little racer for Super Nintendo. Yeah.
One Star Fox fan to another. How did you take Star Fox Adventures?
I think it's a blast. Like, I mean, it's silly, but like I'm all for it. Like, you know, like I think that one thing that us Nintendo fans can count on is that you don't know what to count on with Nintendo. Like, they're always willing to just try something out of left field just to see what sticks. And if there's one thing that you can reliably expect from them, it's to be unexpected. So I think that's a great example of it. Like I've got a great nostalgia for all of her titles. Like I mentioned that I wasn't allowed to have games that were non-educational myself, but when I was growing up, my first exposure to the 64 generation was my mom would babysit for one of her coworkers, and I would go over to her coworker's house often when she would babysit there, and the family had a Nintendo 64 in the living room with Donkey Kong 64, and that was the one title they had for it. And of course, I had no experience with games growing up, so I was terrible at it. Like I would start a new file and play through like the first hour of the game, and maybe get like through like half of the first chapter or something like that, and then just get stuck. But what I would do is I would reset it every time I went over, and just had a blast every single time. It was just as fun when I would play through the first part of that game. So I definitely got I have a nostalgia for the rare sensibilities of game development or game design. So going back and playing Banjo and Conkers and all those are quite a blast. Cameo, Elements of Power was another one that's a lot of fun. So I think everything the rare touches is kind of magic. So Star Fox Adventures is no exception.
What do you think about the Nintendo not making enough games like Eternal Darkness for the Switch?
Oh man, that would be a really nice port. There are still some. I mean, there's two sides to the argument because honestly, I remember when it was first on the scene, the Switch was kind of getting a reputation as a port machine, and some folks weren't happy about it. But I mean, that library is stellar at this point. Like, given that it is, I think, and don't quote me on this because I haven't calculated it out, but I'm pretty sure the Switch has been the longest lifespan for any Nintendo console since the NES. Because I believe they've typically been on a 5 or 6 year cycle, and now we're up to 7. And I think that's again indicative of the kind of the space that we find ourselves in now with the game industry, where hardware is no longer quite as much of a constraint. Now that we can have a handheld that you can throw in your pocket, that like with Switch Lite, that you can play Doom Eternal on, that's nuts. So I think I really hope that we see some really good banger titles in the last year of the Switch, and hopefully, ideally, we'll have the Switch Pro with backwards compatibility where we can continue to just, like, can you imagine if we get another 7-year span of just doubling this life? Like, that would be amazing. Yeah. Looks like we got about 5 more minutes. We might do probably about 5 more questions like that. Yeah.
I haven't seen the Earthbound USA movie yet.
Oh, yeah.
But do you think we're going to get it at all? Mother 3?
It's hard to say. It's one of those situations now where it almost reminds me of Half-Life 3, where like folks were just clamoring for it for over a decade, to the point where it's like nothing that they can. I mean, obviously with Mother 3, it's a little bit of a different situation because it is out. It's a game that you can play. You can play fan translations, so it's not like there's like necessarily some like massive expectation for something that's unseen. Metroid Prime 4 might be another example of that, though, but. I would hope so. I think that there's, especially with the release of Super Mario RPG on Switch, I think that surprised everybody with them being able to find terms with Square Enix to collaborate again and make that happen. I couldn't imagine, because my understanding is that the biggest barrier of entry to that is with the soundtrack. That the soundtrack is questionable, given copyright law. So. Worst case scenario, I could see them swapping soundtrack, and it wouldn't be great, but it'd be better than not having it. So I think it's got to come eventually, right? Like I don't know. But Nintendo has never been one to make decisions based on what would make the money, though. So I don't know. Yeah.
On that topic of Nintendo being more willing to work with third-party studios now with Mario RPG with Square Enix and like Ubisoft with Mario Rabbids, is there a third-party studio that you would want to see Nintendo work with on a game in the future?
Oh man, I would love to see them sync up with Valve. I think that would be legendary. Honestly, like Valve is always cooking up something interesting behind the scenes, and I know they have not had the best of relationships over the past decade, but with the Portal collection on Switch, like that was a shock to me, and I was thrilled. So I'm not sure what went on behind closed doors to make that happen, but I would love to see, like I mentioned, like if they could put out the Orange Box on Switch, man, I would pay $60 for that today. Just give me that like 2009 version of TF2 and Half-Life in the episode, or Half-Life 2 in the episodes, and give me a summer, and I'll just be a recluse. Yeah. I got time for 2 more. Yeah.
So you're talking about before you were 13, you weren't permitted to have any game that wasn't educational. So I anticipate you probably have a story or two of getting in trouble playing video games.
Oh yeah. I think for any other kids of that era, there was definitely I saw a TikTok the other day about someone playing Mario on a DS Lite, and they would close it under the covers, and but then bye-bye, you know, like sort of alerting their parents, and so. I definitely have some memories like that. I remember, especially Pokemon Diamond, when that came out. I just destroyed that game. I think I spent like 900 something hours on Diamond. And part of that was that I was trying to get a Mew from Pokemon Ranch, I think it was, on the Wii, where if you transferred 1,000 Pokemon from the DS to the Wii, you would get a Mew that you could then transfer back to Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. So I was going up and down the road next to the daycare in Diamond on the bike, trying to breed Fion eggs, because it was like the fastest that I could get to. I just transferred 1,000 eggs to my Wii, and it took me like an entire summer, but I got my Mew, and I was like, yeah. But I feel like I had a lot of late nights that I wasn't allowed to have with my DS Lite for sure. Yeah. Do you have any?
Yeah, favorite gaming collection in recent memory?
I just love anything, any oddballs, any weird, obscure corners of especially Nintendo history. So I've been having fun looking for in-game stuff, like I mentioned recently. But the Virtual Boy is always fun. Like if anybody wants to branch out into trying to go for a complete collection, like there are some really tough, unapproachable titles there at the top. But overall, 14 games came out in the US. That's not too bad. Like it's approachable in some respects. So I love the Virtual Boy. Love the 64, of course. Like, I don't think I ever will not love 64, but yeah. All right, I think that's going to do it for time. But thank you all again so much for stopping by. Those of you who did win the presentation, thank you. I hope you all have a great time.